What's up everyone? In this video we're doing a deep dive for season 2 episode 5 of House of the Dragon titled Regent. Before we get going, we have deep dives for all of season 1 and we cover the first 4 episodes of season 2 as well, so check those out if you haven't yet. The last episode ended with the death of Rhaenys and Meleys, along with Aegon and Sunfire being mangled beyond belief. Although Rook's Rest has been captured by Cole, both the Greens and the Blacks have taken heavy losses. Anyways, this episode covers how each side regroups and figures out their next move. This also includes Daemon, who is running his own team up in Harrenhal. We'll start this video by covering the Greens, then the Blacks, and then cover Daemon. So let's start with the Greens. Cole and company return from Rook's Rest, and they parade Meleys' head around King's Landing. Cole is hoping to show strength and get the small folk to see them as strong. It backfires. The commoners view a dead dragon as a bad omen, since they previously believed that dragons were gods and couldn't be killed. They're also terrified of the clapback from Rhaenyra. And lastly, they now know that dragons are simply animals. Legendary animals, yes, but animals. And this means that they can be killed. And they're just basically meat. All Cole did was negatively impact the aura that dragons have, and ultimately their control comes from having dragons. Aegon also gets brought back in a box. Grand Maester Orwyle tries his best to keep Aegon alive. His burns are severe and he has many broken bones and internal damage. He's still alive, but barely. He's in no shape to rule, so a regent has to rule in his place. As for Sunfire, he's crippled and has been left at Rook's Rest, along with some men that are stationed there. Alicent knows her sons and is pretty sure that Aemond is the one who fucked up Aegon. She doesn't get a straight answer from Aemond, and when she tries Criston Cole, he keeps his mouth shut as well.
If she didn't already get the feeling, seeing Aegon the Conqueror's dagger with Aemond should have sealed the deal for Alicent, knowing Aemond was up to something. Cole is screwed here because if he tells the truth, their whole effort is destabilized. Also, if Aemond finds out Cole snitched, that puts Cole in deep shit since Aemond could punish him for it. He's probably not the guy to cross at this point. His best option is to become an accessory to war crimes. Call this guy Dick Cheney. The visual of Aegon is really similar to how we saw Viserys toward the end of his reign in the bed, and Alicent is dedicated to him as well. She might feel guilty considering their last combo before he left.
Yeah, Damon, I really enjoy the parallels that you just brought up there. Regardless, it's time to pick someone to rule in Aegon's place. He has no heirs, so the natural pick is Aemond. Alicent tries to lobby for herself to be the regent, but the Council of Men go against her and choose Aemond. The two men who Alicent foolishly thought were on her side, Larys and Criston Cole, both turn their backs on her. Her case for being the regent is that she made a ton of decisions when Viserys was bedridden, but none of the guys care. It's wartime, and in their minds, a woman cannot lead. It would also be hypocritical for them to pick a woman to rule instead of Aemond, since they've been using Rhaenyra being a woman to discredit her claim to the throne. Alicent gets humiliated in front of the entire council, but hey, she's made her own bed, so now she has to sleep in it. Aemond now rules from King's Landing.
Pretty shocking how blindsided Alicent appeared at the decision. This is the system that she worked to keep in place, and now she's experiencing firsthand why that might not have been such a great idea. You take a look at Larys, he's actually not on as good of terms with Alicent as it once was due to the things that have gone down with her and Cole and the fact she's drawn distance between her and Larys. You look at Cole. Even though that they are basically in love, as soon as Cole got that hand position, he had more power than Alicent, even if she would be 10 times better leader. Aemond basically just committed a coup via Dragonfire and is now being rewarded for it. He is smarter than Aegon, but that also means he's harder to control, and he's more brutal as well. Objectively, Alicent would have been the right choice, but with that logic, Rhaenyra would have been the right choice back when Viserys passed.
Meanwhile, the Stepstones blockade has now drained King's Landing so badly that its own citizens are trying to flee the city. Aemond orders the gates to be shut down to prevent any more citizens from leaving. He also has the bodies of the ratcatchers who have been hanging in public to be taken down. As expected, Aemond runs a pretty tight ship.
This maneuver severely impacts our old buddy Hugh, who's rocking some nice white locks, I must say. Times are tough and the small folk grow even more desperate. It does seem as though Aemond's lessons from his favorite madam haven't held true.
It is often others who suffer. The small folk. Like me.
His turn toward a darker demeanor has continued through last episode. Good call to cut down the corpses that have been hanging for about a month though.
Yeah, leaving those bodies hanging up there was heinous. It must have smelled like fucking straight ass. And speaking of Aemond, there's a scene where he's staring longingly at the Iron Throne, and Helena walks in and asks him if he's happy with what he did. Helena knows that Aemond betrayed his brother for power. We'll see how their relationship progresses. They might bang. As for battle plans, Tywin's brother Jason Lannister is marching to meet Daemon at Harrenhal, and as for Criston Cole, in this episode he looks super shook the entire time. He's now witnessed firsthand the power of dragons, and he feels pretty powerless in comparison.
Yeah, the best way you can describe it is that he has shell shock or PTSD from what he experienced. In theory, a dragon battle sounds awesome. In practice, I'm sure it's terrifying as hell, and it's the kind of thing that will stay with you until your dying day. This is a huge contrast to the arrogant attitude he had toward the start of the war previously. All this just because your first love wouldn't run away with you and sell citrus fruits.
Alright, now it's time to move on to Team Black and see how they regroup. News of Rhaenys' death reaches both Dragonstone and Driftmark, and we see a devastated and broken Corlys as well as a tearful Rhaenyra. However, a war is happening, so any grieving must be brief. Rhaenyra's council is in fucking disarray. They've lost Duskendale and Rook's Rest. They have no ground army since all their hopes were pinned on Daemon. Rhaenyra doesn't know what to do either since she doesn't really have any experience with this stuff. It's a complete mess, and Sir Alfred isn't making matters better. This prompts Jace to take things into his own hands. He tries to sneak out to Harrenhal and get Daemon to stop being a rebellious teenager, but Baela catches Jace. Jace is tired of sitting around and wants to get active. Baela talks it out with him, and together they come up with a better plan. The Freys control this pivotal bridge known as the Twins. This bridge lies directly on the main route from Winterfell to Riverrun. Remember from episode 1, Cregan Stark is sending 2,000 men to aid Rhaenyra. If they can cross the Twins, then they could get to Riverrun way quicker, and the Blacks would have their ground army without relying on Daemon. Jace meets with the Freys without Rhaenyra's permission. The Freys report to Grover Tully, but since Tully is dying, they still have no clear direction on which side to declare for. The Freys want to pledge their allegiance to Rhaenyra, but they're afraid of Aegar. Jace offers them protection, and he offers Daemon's protection as well, which is sort of like writing a check you might not be able to cash, but hey, good on Jace for making a move. The Freys want Harrenhal in return for letting the Starks pass the bridge, and Jace counters with this: bend the knee to Rhaenyra and you'll get Harrenhal. A deal is made. Look at Jace making moves.
He has a cool storyline in this episode because until this point, Rhaenyra has held him protected within the shadows of Luke's passing. We know his biggest contribution so far is the Stark Pledge. We know from Larys' previous comments that Harrenhal is essentially broke. So with this deal, you get a possible influx of resources and the start of an army all in one. The biggest issue will be getting Daemon to go along with all of this because Jace has already pledged Daemon's protection. Sometimes you have to overpromise to get the deal done.
Yeah, it's like in the NBA, sometimes you gotta overpay to get a deal done. The council meeting has Rhaenyra frustrated, but fortunately she has Mysaria as her secret advisor. Mysaria tells her that there's another way to fight a war, through gossip and propaganda. She sends Alinda to King's Landing to start spreading dissent and push narratives that are beneficial to the Blacks. Alinda infiltrates King's Landing and meets up with Diana, the girl from season 1 that Aegon raped.
Mysaria's advice was pretty sound too. Stick to what you're good at and learn to delegate. We see the green side taking a whole different approach since Aemond has now supreme mandates over the military, domestic affairs, and even more. Rhaenyra was selected as the heir because Viserys knew she could handle challenges like this, not because she had supreme know-how of every subject.
Rhaenyra also hangs out with Baela, and they reminisce on both Rhaenys and Baela's mother, Rhaena. Rhaenyra then sends Baela to Driftmark to offer Corlys the position of Rhaenyra's hand. Corlys has lost so many close to him, his wife, his daughter, his son, just to name a few, that at this point he's ready to just sail away and call it quits, but Baela sort of challenges his manhood. Basically, she calls her grandfather a pussy and says that she's gonna fight for Rhaenyra and die like a true dragon warrior. Corlys is moved by this display of toughness, and he even offers to make Baela the heir of Driftmark. Baela refuses and says that she's made of blood and fire, and the heir to Driftmark should be salt and sea. She leaves the pin for the hand with Corlys and walks off.
Gotta be the quote of the episode. Corlys has shown that Rhaenys was his rudder that guided him throughout the years. Without her, he's struggling to see the light. Baela saw Rhaenys as a mother-like figure and learned a lot from her as her ward, so she's obviously reeling too on some level, but I think Corlys sees a little bit of Rhaenys in Baela which lends him more strength. Ironically, that's exactly why she can't accept the offer to become the heir of Driftmark. Her response makes us think of a couple other candidates, however.
Also, Daemon not responding to any of the Dragonstone Ravens is a major issue, so Rhaenyra finally sends Sir Alfred to go to Harrenhal. Sir Alfred has been openly defying Rhaenyra at the council meetings, so at first he's worried that Rhaenyra is removing him from the council, but Rhaenyra says not to worry. She knows that Alfred is loyal to her, and more importantly, his house hates the Hightowers. So this mission to Harrenhal is actually really important, and reasoning with Daemon will be key for the Blacks to have any chance. Rhaenyra wants Alfred to figure out if Daemon is raising an army for himself or for Rhaenyra.
This move might also balance out Daemon's more sinister tendencies because, as we'll discuss later, he is not in a great state of mind right now. You also need more military experience to raise an army of any consequence, so to this point, it's really only Daemon and Will Blackwood, unless you want to put Sir Simon Strong in charge of the battalion.
Jace returns from his meeting with the Freys, and he and Rhaenyra finally get some time to talk. Rhaenyra is thankful for Jace making moves, but at the same time, she's frustrated with Jace for disobeying her. But ultimately, she's more frustrated that she is forced to stay at Dragonstone while others ride out and risk their lives for her. It's a nice moment of honesty between mother and son.
They have brief words about Visenya Targaryen here as well. She was the badass sister/wife of Aegon the Conqueror. These Targaryens, man. She was a skilled warrior and helped establish the dynasty, but she had a darker side as well, which could be why Jace hinted at not using her as an example. He could also just be giving her a reality check that this is a bit of a different situation they're dealing with.
They continue doing some war strategizing, and Rhaenyra realizes that they need more dragons. Jace points out that they have plenty of dragons. What they actually need are more Dragonriders. Vermithor and Silverwing are two massive dragons that reside at Dragonstone. The only legitimate member of their line that could be a new rider is Rhaena, but she almost died in her last dragon bonding attempt. Jace suggests other members of the Targaryen family, members who married into other houses. It would be risky since their Targaryen blood might be diluted, but it's far better than nothing. Rhaenyra and Jace prepare to read their own family history books and identify new potential riders. Fuck yeah, baby.
There's also another similar option, because we know from earlier in the show that there are a few Targaryen bastards in King's Landing. Let's roll the dice.
We also get an update on how Rhaena is doing. She's currently residing in the Eyrie, which is the main stronghold of House Arryn up in the Vale. Lady Jane Arryn is lecturing her about how the Eyrie is basically immune to any attacks outside of dragons. She's mad that Rhaenyra sent over 2 small dragons, Stormcloud and Tyraxes. She promised Rhaenyra 15,000 soldiers, but she was expecting an adult dragon. Rhaena defends Rhaenyra and says that the dragons will grow and she should be thankful to have 2 dragons.
Rhaena not having a dragon has been a slight detriment to her own self-confidence for a minute now, so it was good to see her stand up for herself. You can't blame Lady Jane though, because there's no shot Stormcloud and Tyraxes could withstand any of the grown dragons for the foreseeable future. It's like when you apply to college and they offer you a financial aid package and it's only like $5,000 in government loans with a horrific interest rate. Yeah, they gave you something, but what's it really gonna do?
Let's finish off this video by checking on what war crimes Daemon is committing up at Harrenhal. Daemon first starts by trying to bully the Brackens into pledging their allegiance to him. The Brackens would legitimately rather die by dragonfire than work alongside a Blackwood. Ultimately, Daemon doesn't burden them since he needs their manpower. He also respects their willingness to die instead of going against their principles. Daemon has to find another solution. He tells Will Blackwood to essentially commit war crimes against the Brackens. This involves killing Bracken peasants, kidnapping Bracken children, etc. to try and get them to comply. This ends up working, with House Bracken yielding, but there are unforeseen consequences which we'll discuss in a bit. Also, Daemon's crazy visions and dreams are getting worse. Whatever drink Alice gave him must have had mushrooms in them, since he's now dreaming of having sex with his mother. In fairness to Daemon, he doesn't realize that it's his mother until the end of the dream. The woman's name is Alyssa, and she died before Daemon really got to know her. Harrenhal is still a shithole though, so Daemon tries to get any hunter, farmer, blacksmith, or any type of skilled worker to come to Harrenhal and get the place up and running. Give credit to Daemon, he himself joins in and is chopping wood to help with the repairs.
Usually a guy will just buy a Corvette to satisfy a midlife crisis. Sometimes they buy a fixer-upper though. The whole Daemon and his mom thing is a lot to take in. You can sum it up by just saying Daemon lost his mother Alyssa at a very young age, and we know she cared for him quite a bit.
I will not revisit this debate. You were always mother's favorite.
His relationships with women since then have been, not the healthiest. As he tries to find the love he lost after Alyssa's death, this has resulted in a lot of, for lack of a better term, wild-ass behavior, sometimes very much terrible behavior, to try and support his ideal vision of himself as a conqueror and leader of men. Him getting passed over as the heir only made this worse, and it's only going to get darker unless he admits some hard truth.
So Daemon's war crimes against the Brackens angers the other River Lords. They show up to Harrenhal in the middle of the night to cuss Daemon out. Daemon only knows how to use brute force to get his way, and that method just has too many problems that come with it. The River Lords tell Daemon that his actions are going to have consequences, and no matter what, they won't pledge their loyalty to a tyrant like him. To make matters worse, Daemon is continuing to suffer from visions and is losing his mind. This Harrenhal shit is a disaster. I just hope Simon Strong doesn't get his head chopped off.
That brute force method Chen mentioned ties into Aemond's ascendance too. There's a clear difference between gathering support from those that respect and believe in you versus forcing compliance like you're some kind of old school mafia boss. The Targaryen master line was particularly cringeworthy. Everything Daemon is experiencing is a rebuke from the spirits of old. Alice even tries to warn him earlier, and you can't deny that she has a part in this. Although I don't think she's purely vindictive, and she might actually be trying to give him advice on multiple occasions indirectly. The showrunners did a solid job disguising Daemon's character arc this season because I can't tell if he's going to commit high treason while under the influence of ghouls and mushrooms, burn the Riverlands down, or come to his senses to support Rhaenyra and be the force that guides the Black Side back to the Iron Throne.
Alright, that does it for our episode 5 breakdown. We'll be back with episode 6. Appreciate everyone for watching.